We want to thank everyone for joining us, and we're going to get started in just about 3 minutes. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Maureen Wilt, and I am the chair of the Florida Energy Workforce Consortium. I want to thank you for joining us tonight for our very first virtual Careers in Energy event. Some of you may have joined us in the past for one of our in-person events, but with COVID restrictions, as well as our desire to reach people all over the state who may have not had the opportunity to attend one of our in-person events, we've changed our format. As I said, our organization is the Florida Energy Workforce Consortium, or otherwise known as FEWC. We were founded in 2006 by members of the energy industry, as well as educators and others from workforce development who recognize the need for more awareness outside of the industry about career opportunities inside our industry. FEWC then worked under the guidance of our national organization, the Center for Energy Workforce Development, to create a Get Into Energy Florida brand. This logo is what you will see when we are at an event with students, teachers, or anyone who is interested in a career in our industry. We will keep the information on the screen throughout the event if you have questions or would like more information about anything you hear tonight. Be sure to like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and keep watching because later this year we're going to launch our very own new website, www.getintoenergyflorida.com, and that'll be launched before the end of the year. I'm now going to turn it over to Lynn Casella. Lynn works for Florida Public Utilities and serves as our chair-elect for FEWC. And she'll give you an overview of the evening. Lynn?
Thank you, Maureen, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for choosing to spend some time here with us tonight. We have an exciting program to share with you, an inspiring 60 minutes that will give you a glimpse into just a few of the many career possibilities available within the energy industry here in Florida. These are essential, stable, well-paying jobs with great benefits that companies like mine, Maureen's, and others have continued to hire for even throughout the COVID pandemic. The energy industry is a vital contributor to our state's economic development and to the financial success of Florida business owners everywhere, and in many ways, including providing some of the lowest priced electricity available and dependable economical backup power for generators utilizing natural gas and propane. In addition, sustainable renewable energy such as wind, solar, thermal, hydropower, and geothermal, as well as renewable natural gas, all offer exciting career options. Alternative fuels also bring the need for new equipment like batteries and fuel cell technology, and added jobs for the installation, service, and ongoing maintenance needs that this equipment will require. I know I can speak on behalf of my FEWC colleagues as well as all of the presenters here with us tonight and say that we are proud to be involved in the industry, and I in particular with Florida Public Utilities, offering a variety of energy solutions that are good for the economy and for the environment as they help to lower carbon emissions, are produced here in the U.S. in plentiful supply, and offer energy security and stable pricing. It's an exciting time to be in the energy industry, and it offers a bright future, pun intended, for those that choose it as a career. And as consumers, we appreciate choices so that we can each decide on the energy mixes in our own homes and businesses. Governor DeSantis understands this, and he too has a great appreciation for the energy industry. We are honored that he signed a proclamation officially declaring this week, October 19 to 23, as Careers in Energy Week for Florida. So our goal tonight is to introduce you to the industry and a few possible careers brought to you by our invited presenters as they share their individual stories with us. There are hundreds of possible jobs available in accounting, customer service, marketing, sales, operations, safety and compliance, human resources, sustainability, and regulatory, just to name a few. And new ones are being developed every day, especially in the renewable energy and technology categories. Our hope is that you hear something intriguing tonight that will encourage you to reach out and get more specific information. Over the next hour, you will meet 5 individuals: a recent graduate of the Relay Tech program at Lake Sumter State College, a talented young electrical engineer at Duke Energy, which is one of the largest electric power holding companies in the US, a line woman in training at Gulf Power Company, which is a subsidiary of NextEra Energy, a savvy businesswoman from Gas Systems Technology who worked her way up the corporate ladder, and a US Navy veteran employed at Disney World as a power plant operator. As a reminder, we have placed everyone on mute and turned off cameras so that we can better focus on the individual presenters. If you have questions or comments, just type them in the chat box located at the bottom of your computer screen, and we'll take as many questions from viewers as we have time for after the last presenter. It is now my pleasure to introduce you to our moderator for this evening, Dr. Amy Albee Levine. She is the Dean of Workforce Development at Lake Sumter State College, my colleague on the Executive Board of Directors for FEWC, and our current Chairwoman of Education. Amy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Again, I am Dr. Amy Albee Levine, Dean of Workforce Development at Lake Sumter State College. I'm a proud member of the Florida Energy Workforce Consortium and very happy to represent the education sector when it comes to energy programs. I want to go ahead and get started. I'm very excited to introduce our first panelist, Mr. Hudson Cadet of Duke Energy. Hudson, if you could start by introducing yourself and talk about exactly what you do at Duke. I know that you moved from a systems engineer to a rotation engineer to a systems engineer, and also about the education you received to get where you're at Duke.
Thanks, Amy. Like Amy said, my name is Hudson Cadet. I'm an engineer at Duke Energy. I did study engineering in college. I have a degree in electrical engineering from a school called Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach. It is an aeronautical school, like I said, but I studied broad electrical engineering in my college studies, so that was good enough for me to have a good base for what I work with today. And honestly, that goes for most engineering programs, most colleges. So if you are looking into engineering and you want to work in the energy industry, especially either in transmission or what we call distribution, I work in distribution. It's pretty solid engineering background to have to get into those fields. When you get more into the generation side, which is your power plants and all that, then you might get into more mechanical engineering, chemical, and even nuclear. So that's just a little bit of background for if you want to get into maybe on the generation side, which is obviously your power plants, and then transmission and distribution, which are it really is the building power lines and getting power from the generation plant to our customers. My title at Duke Energy is a systems engineer. Like Amy pointed out, I started out as what we call a rotation engineer. As a rotation engineer, it was a good program to be a part of, because generally when you join any utility as an engineer, you start out with one kind of work, and you do that for as long as you're in that particular position. You really don't change much. The difference between that and a rotation engineer is I get to work with different engineering departments, all related to distribution, but I do different engineering 3 to 4 months, actually 3 to 8 months at a time. So I can talk a little bit about each one of those departments. I don't want to get too much into it, but the first, most basic engineering that you can do as a distribution engineer is design engineering, which means anybody, commercial customer, residential customer, if you're building a house, you need a power line to serve, right? So as a design engineer, it's your job to go out there, meet with the customer. Sometimes it's the homeowner, sometimes it's the electrician building a house for the homeowner. You meet with them, see what power demands their house is going to need, their business is going to need, their industrial building is going to need. Do whatever calculations it takes to make sure that they have adequate power, the right wire size, whether it's going to be overhead, underground, what route you're going to take, all that good stuff. That's design engineering, and that's a pretty good test for engineering skills, because you not only have to do engineering, you have to also be somewhat of a project manager. You have a lot of projects going on at once, a lot of communication you have to keep up with. It's a good challenge. And keep in mind, I say engineering, I am a degreed engineer, but that position itself, we actually do have engineers that don't have degrees. Some have a long background. Some have 2-year degrees from community colleges. Some are engineers like me. But to do design engineering, you don't necessarily have to be a degreed engineer. And you can progress the same way I progress. Some of them are engineering techs, we call them, because they don't have a degree, but it's not too different from my pay scale, where we have engineer 1s, 2s, 3s, senior and lead. We have engineer techs, 1s, 2s, 3s, senior and lead. So just wanted to point that out for those of you who may not be thinking you're cut out for 4 years of rigorous engineering work. But the next ones I can go over a little bit quicker. We have power quality, which is engineering that deals with customers' power quality in their homes. Let's say I live out in the middle of, a little bit further out in town. My lights flicker a lot. I'm wondering, why is it happening? We have engineers that investigate that, and we do our best to make sure that we resolve whatever issues customers face. That's power quality. Protection engineering, which is another department that I work with, and that's just dealing with different devices we have in our system, making sure that they all coordinate together. We don't just put wire out there and feed customers. There are things like fuses, reclosers, breakers that we do have to work with. That's an engineering in and of itself. There's also what we call load growth. Load growth means that you manage how much load is coming into a given area or town. You do have a certain amount of power you can feed a town, depending on what your substation has in it. A substation for a town. And when towns start getting bigger, you got to start thinking about putting in new substations, power lines. That's all load growth. And then the last thing, the most interesting thing I do now, especially as a systems engineer, is smart grid work. As a smart grid work that we do, it takes devices that are automated and we put them in our SCADA system. SCADA stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. It's basically a fancy term for being able to see what's out there remotely and being able to automatically control devices that we have. You might be wondering why we need that. Any given power system has failures, and you're going to have outages. Trees are going to fall down on lines. Cars are going to inevitably hit a pole somewhere that doesn't fall over, bring down the lines. Hurricanes happen, right? Storms happen. All that stuff means we're guaranteed to have outages. What we try to do with the SCADA systems and the smart grid that we're building is minimize the effects of said outages, trying to make sure that we keep as many customers on as possible. And that's pretty much the ins and outs of what I do as an engineer. The load growth, the smart grid stuff, the protection stuff, that is usually the degreed engineers that do that. But power quality, design engineering, those, we have a lot of good power quality engineers, a lot of good design engineers, and they don't have 4-year degrees from colleges. They do have background in either maybe the line side or like an engineering technology degree, but again, to be successful in those, it's not really about having a 4-year degree in engineering.
Thank you, Hudson. One of the things I'd like to ask you is, what advice would you have for somebody out there listening who's hesitant maybe to get into the field, but is very interested, but might be hesitant to get into the field? What advice would you have?
I'd say don't be afraid to try anything in our company. The good thing about working in the energy industry, a lot of different niches or places where you can fit in. I'm an engineer, and again, even the people that do engineering, the employees that do engineering, they come from different backgrounds. Some used to be relay techs, some used to work on the line side, like I said, some used to work in our customer service department. All of them can be successful at what they do here as long as they apply themselves and are willing to learn. I said you don't need a college degree, and you don't need school for whatever we do. School isn't for everybody, but learning is. And as long as you apply yourself to learning, you can be successful at whatever it is you do here. But again, even if you don't like anything within even engineering, we have other departments like right of way. We have obviously our administrative departments, like every company has. We have more. We have right of way protection, which is not the same as right of way. One has to do with more like paperwork and the legal side of things. The other has to do with actually protecting right of way and what our assets are. There's a lot you can get into, and a lot of good people to work with. So don't be afraid to try something and just get your foot in the door, because more likely than not, I think we have something that you're going to like.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Hudson. I really appreciate your time. And at this time, we're going to move on to our next speaker, Nicole Skipper. Nicole is an apprentice line worker for Gulf Power. I'd like to ask Nicole to introduce herself and give us a little bit of instruction about what she does at Gulf Power and talk about how she got into that position and the type of training that she received to become an apprentice line woman for Gulf Power.
Hi, I'm Nicole Skipper. In 2003, plant on the generation side. Each generator is your power plant side. So I was making the power then. I was a utility person / helper. And then in 2006, I decided to leave the company to become a mom. I was a mom for 10 years. And then in 2017, I rejoined Gulf Power to finish my career at Crest Plant, and then was a assistant plant operator. And so in January 2019, NextEra acquired Gulf Power, and Gulf Power was reorganized, and there was some construction at the plant, and it changed from coal to gas. And the numbers of employees needed to be reduced. So Gulf Power offered us, all the employees at the plant, some other opportunities in the different places that you could work. And one of them was distribution side. So they offered that to us, and we went to a week-long climbing school and overview of what distribution is. And then the ones who made it through it, the climbing the poles and all that fun stuff. The ones who made it through it went to an interview, and we were hired as apprentice linemen. And so it's a 4-year program. And this distribution side of the company builds and maintains and repairs the electrical system, the power lines, your transformers, your wires that run to the houses, your secondary. We build, repair, and keep up with all of that stuff. So then, let's see, let me think. The training is 4 years, and I always have a journeyman with me. Like I said, I'm an apprentice, so I have a journeyman with me, and he is my teacher. It's a lot of OJT, and Gulf Power teaches all of it to us as we go along. We rotate trucks every month. So I get an overview of different journeymen's ways of working and the different ways you can do certain jobs, which is very helpful. I'm one of 3 women presently in Gulf Power as linemen. So that's pretty awesome.
Yes, it absolutely is. You mentioned OJT just a minute ago. Can you, for those of the individuals on the line who may not know what that is, can you describe a little bit about what that is?
Okay, so on-the-job training is like my journeyman is my teacher. He's my mentor. And so we pull up to a job that we have to, anything I have to do during the day, I'll drive the truck, but he's going to be the one once we get to our job that instructs me on how to do what I have to do, like put the primary, your power lines up there, what I'm going to need to, what equipment, what tools, what bolts, and all that I'll need. He's there to help me, watch me, and train me as far as anything I have to do in the day.
Okay, thank you. I do have a couple of questions for you, and my first question is, what would you say to any women, young women, or any women or young girls on the call who are interested in going into line work? What advice would you have for them? What if they're hesitant to go in?
What advice? I would say it's very hot. That's the main thing. You have to be able to deal with heat and a lot of physical work. You definitely going to need to do your strength training, but it's not. It's very doable. The work itself is not hard to understand and comprehend. It's just the physical labor end of it. Definitely, that's about what would get me. I've had to work on that and had to hit the gym for that, just to build strength, because it's a lot of upper body strength. But do it because I love it. It's awesome. It is a lot of fun. It's just so rewarding.
Yeah, I think I remember you saying earlier, "Don't be afraid" was one of the things you had said. So another question I have is, when people think about line work, they often think about being in trucks and strictly working on the line. What are some of the other things that you might do in that position?
Okay, so the line truck is the most you're gonna see, but there's also us on the side of houses hooking up the secondary to your brand new houses. There's underground power, your little green boxes in the yards of all the subdivisions you don't see power lines above. Those are transformers, and have your power, and we work on those. We climb poles when we can't get a bucket, or if, like, for instance, I was on a storm trip and my pole that I had to replace was on the side of a mountain. So we couldn't get a bucket truck to it. So we had to get up the mountain and then climb the pole and put wire back up. But there's a lot.
It's not just being in the truck. Some people on the line, on the call, might be interested in safety. How do you ensure safety on the job? What kind of things do you go through to ensure safety in your position?
Well, they have a week-long safety class that we go to when you're initiate. Your introduction of line crew and all the HR stuff you have to do, of course. But anyway, we have our work boots, our steel toe boots, of course. That's a must. That's in our FR clothing. We have our primary gloves, which is going to be the big power lines up top, and then our secondary, which is the small stuff, and then always our leather gloves. Of course, we have our climbing gear, our hooks and belts, and then glasses, hard hat, and mainly your brother's keeper. So you always watch the person you're around or the people you're around and just make sure everything's going good and they're not going to do anything and you're not going to do anything. But if everybody's watching, you're good.
Are you required to do regular updates on training at your position?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, every year, because we climb poles, you have to do a hurt man rescue. So you have to go up and rescue the dummy, climb up and cut him down free and get him down and do your 2 breaths. That's once a year requirement, as well as bucket rescue. And then we have CPR and first aid, always, of course, kept up to date. And then we have a bunch of classes that we go to every year, and then some stuff that we do on the web as well to keep up our training.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Nicole. It's very exciting to hear from you. Great to see a woman, a line woman, if you will, and feel into her from you and see your enthusiasm for the job. I hope it rubs off on some of individuals on the call. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Next, I would like to introduce Jess Rosario, who is a recent graduate of Lake Sumter State College's Engineering Technology, sometimes referred to as Relay Technology program. So Jess, I'd like to ask you to introduce yourself and talk about how you got into the program, how you got interested in it, and what you're currently working on.
Hi, can you see me?
Yes, yes. Hello.
All right, well, Jess Rosario. Can you see me?
We can't see you. You can. Oh, I can.
All right, sorry about that. The internet right now is kind of shaky. But all right, so my name is how I got interested in the program. Came from a family member that suggested it to me. They got me in contact with the program director, and talking to the program director and seeing what they do, I joined in.
You want to try turning your video off, Jess? See if that helps.
Yeah, I'll try.
Okay. All right, Jess, go ahead.
Okay. Aside from what I said, I'm also someone who has been transitioning from the teaching field. I used to be a previous art education major and a substitute teacher. After going through the program, I came back to work for them as a lab assistant, in which I've been assisting students with content that they cover and teachers with lab processes that they do.
Jess, can you talk a little bit about being a career changer and what advice you might have for someone out there who's listening who might be thinking about changing careers? I believe we do have a few people out there who are interested in possibly changing careers. So what advice would you have for those individuals?
If you are changing a career, I would say research what new career interests that you're having. Consider what kind of lifestyle you would like to lead with that. In the energy program, there's, two routes. There's the routes that are more physical oriented, and there's the routes that are more office oriented. When you look into programs, find out what kind of jobs you would potentially qualify for after you complete a degree or training in it. And as you pursue a new interest, like make sure to network as much as possible, participate in like any internships they may have, and try to get related experience to what you're trying to pursue, because that will help you after you graduate to get into the field. And aside from that, I would just say have fun with learning something new. New experiences are pretty neat at times.
Can you talk about a little bit about what relay technology is for some people on the call who may not know exactly what that is? What does a relay technologist or technician do?
Well, a relay technologist or a relay technician, what they do, they calibrate, they install, maintain, and repair relays that could be found at generation stations, transmission switchyards, and control houses. They also interpret substation schematics and drawings, and can write out procedures for maintenance for different equipment out there.
One of the other questions I have for you is, I know as you and I have talked before, that and you are one of the only women in the program. So again, I'd like to ask you, what would your advice be to any young women or girls out there, or women listening who might be interested in going into engineering or relay technology? What advice would you have?
I would say try it. Although there, might not be as many women in these types of field, it doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you have to consider maybe like new ways to like adjust yourselves to the demands of the job that you're going for. I would say that you also need to figure out well, aside from that, I would say that just go for it. I mean, peers will treat you like peers. You're not treated any differently. At least in my personal experience, what I noticed, at least from my particular experience, a lot of the students were very team-oriented. So most oftentimes you'll be very much included in whatever they're working on.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about going back to LSSC's program in engineering technology? Can you talk a little bit about the courses that you had to take? You don't have to go into detail, but just kind of courses you had to take.
Okay. I had to take courses like Introduction to Electronics. We learned about circuits and Ohm's law and things of that nature. We also had to learn software like AutoCAD for more of the designing side of it. We also had to learn how to read prints that have very specific symbols that you need to understand. We also learned information about transformers, circuit breakers, protective relays, and just general equipment you might find at a substation.
Okay, thank you. And one last question. What was your favorite part of the program at LSSC?
My favorite part were the hands-on activities, which ranged from climbing on top of equipment such as our substation yard's transformer. We got to build a relay panel using schematics and power tools. We also had a lot of field trip opportunities that I enjoyed, that like exposed us to actual personnel working in the field. It kind of gave you a easy, like better picture of what to expect.
All right, thank you so much, Jess, for sharing that information about the program. I really appreciate it. I want to move on to our next speaker, Angela Matthews, who is a manager for gas systems technology. Angela, if you could please introduce yourself and talk about your role at gas systems technology and how you ended up in a career in the energy field.
Hi, I'm Angela. I'm in the natural gas and propane industry. I've been in it now for 26 years. I started doing gas. As you know, I had 2 kids and I needed to get a job to take care of them. So there was an opening, somebody I knew that worked for a contractor for the gas company, and I went to work with them and worked my way up. I'm still working for the same company that I worked for back then. I work for them now. And basically we do all the infrastructure, gas services, distribution for residential, commercial buildings, subdivisions, restaurants, almost anything that needs gas, we're there to supply it for them.
Can you talk a little bit about the training that you've been through to get to where you are?
I've been through multiple trainings through OSHA. OSHA is basically for your safety, for trench safety, knowing how to dig. And everybody says you just dig a trench, but there's more to it than that, depending on the depth. You have to know when it's too deep, when it's, you need a shore box, when you need a ladder, when you need to shore back your ditch line, how far to keep the dirt from the hole. You also learn safety for lockout, tagout on machines that you're operating, whether it be a track hoe, backhoe, front loader, trencher. We also operate and have training on using cut saws, missiles, heating tools for the pipe that we install, electrofusion boxes. We have MOT training to know how to set up for traffic control, to direct traffic, or to let them know there's construction ahead. We have OQ training, which is operator qualifications. Everything that you do in the field down to putting in the ditch tape, the tracer wire, because the polyethylene pipe that we normally put in for gas, it's not traceable. So you have to put in a tracer wire along with it in order to be able to locate where the pipe is at. There is an operator qualification for everything you do in the field. You have to be either on the job training or you learn it, as you go with the people you're with. Generally, to me, that's the best way to learn how to do it, is on the job. If you see it done, your hands on, you're more likely to pick it up than reading it in a book. We're very big on safety, doing that. We work with a utility, which any utility company has their own safety protocols, which we also do.
Well, thank you. We don't hear as much about jobs when we think about the energy sector. We don't hear much about jobs in the gas industry. So can you talk a little bit about what jobs are available where you're at? I know you're the manager, and you're in the panhandle of the state. What type of jobs are there available in the gas sector for the energy industry?
Well, right now I am located in West Palm Beach, and there's all kinds of job openings. There's technicians for interior, pipe fitting for the houses, because you got to have interior piping. And then there's technicians to install meters that can connect appliances to the fuel line that's installed in the houses. Then you have the underground crews that install the services from the main to the house. Then you have your underground crews that also install the infrastructure lines that go underground through the whole subdivisions or down right-of-ways or DOT roads and stuff like that to supply power plants, houses, buildings with all the gas. As far as where I'm at, that's, and then also the LP section. You got to go out, install the LP tanks, you run the service lines to the house, pulling permits. There's a lot of different sections that it branches off to.
Can you explain what LP means?
LP, I'm sorry, that's liquid petroleum gas.
Okay.
Another form of gas. There's natural gas and liquid petroleum gas.
Thank you. So I obviously you're a woman, and there's not many women in the industry. So I'd like to ask this question of what advice would you have for any young women or girls out there listening who might be interested in getting into the industry?
What I can tell you is never think that you can't do it. Because everybody kept telling me I was a girl and I wasn't going to last. Well, 26 years later, and here I am. If you want something bad enough, just go get it. You work hard, put your mind to it, and you can do it.
That's definitely great advice. Thank you. And you talked a little bit about this already, but it sounds like there's consistent on-the-job training and skill updating that you're getting on the job. Can you talk about a little bit about some of the specific certifications that you have that you've been getting on the job and what the process is to actually get those?
Yes, the process, okay, as far as OQ, which is operator qualifications, that basically, it qualifies you to do a specific task. So if you're in the field, and normally, okay, for instance, it's a poly-tap tee that is put on by heat fusion that gets fused to a gas main. You have to have an operator qualification in order to fuse this to a pipe. So what we do is you go out with a crew, and the foreman, if we have, you know, the new guys that come out and they're learning underneath the foremans that have been there for years, they teach them how to do this. There's a time. You have to time yourself to put a tap tee on a main. You got to heat the main and tee for the same amount of time. Then iron sits on top of it with plates. And you time it under a certain amount of pressure. And when the time is up, you take the iron off and you put the tee on and you hit it again at a certain amount of pressure, which is usually 100 pounds. And you don't lock it. You let it gradually let itself come down to 0. And there's a cool time. Well, after you work with the foreman for a certain amount of time, you get to take your chance to be in front of an evaluator like myself, which I am qualified to evaluate a person in the field. Let them do it on a main that's not live. And that's what we call fusion testing. We go through, we put a T on, we fuse couplings together, we do a butt fusion. Butt fusion is where you bring 2 pieces of pipe together. A coupling, which is where a piece of pipe is inserted into a fitting. And then you also do a saddle fusion, is where a T is put on a main and it is heat melted. If you can do those tasks after being trained in the field without somebody telling you what to do, and you get them and they look good, and we send them to a third party to get tested, that's non-destructive testing. They cut them into 4 different pieces to make sure they cannot break apart. They put them through bending machines to make sure everything holds. And then you take, sometimes there's written tests, sometimes there's not. It all depends on which company you go through for your operator qualifications. And then if the evaluator feels that you've learned enough or you know enough to where nobody had to, how do I say, push them along to pick, questions out of them or pick answers out of them, then they're able to get OQ qualified.
Thank you very much. Again, the role model for women interested in the industry. Thank you so much. At this time, I want to move on to our next speaker, Marlon Vaughn. He is a power plant operator for Reedy Creek, which is part of Disney. Marlon, if you can introduce yourself and talk about your role at Reedy Creek and how you arrived at that position, and also give us a little bit of information on your educational background.
Hey, everybody, how you doing? My name is Marlon Vaughn. I'm a power plant operator at Disney Reedy Creek. What a lot of people don't know is that Disney has its own power plant. We are a generator, and we produce about 115 megawatts. Power plant operator, we operate the boilers. Our boiler, we have a jet engine called a LM6000. If you saw the movie Top Gun, when Tom Cruise hits the gas, man, that flame comes out of the back. Well, that's where we heat our boilers with. We make steam. We put about 8 megawatts on our steam turbine, and we produce about 46 megawatts with our gas turbine. But we're not just a natural gas producing energy producer. We're also, Disney's really big into renewable energies. We're also always trying to increase our green finger, our green thumb. We definitely are really big now in the solar. We just brought online last year, I think it's in January. We brought on our solar array that produces about 55 megawatts. And a lot of you may have seen the Mickey ears. That's in partnership with Duke. And we produce about 5 megawatts with that. The way I got into this industry is pretty weird. I went into the Navy, and the only reason I went into the Navy was my wife went in. Well, she wasn't my wife then, we were dating in high school, and she left right after high school. Broke my heart in two. But I tried to follow her, and I was like, the recruiter called me about 3 weeks after she went in, said, Marlon, do you want to go in the Navy? I was like, hey, yeah, let's do this. I'll meet up with her, and we'll be married and move on with life. And I was in boot camp about 5 weeks, and I called her parents to find out where she was going to be stationed. And she answered the phone and said, I didn't like it. I got out. So I was stuck in the Navy, but I picked up a great and amazing trade. I picked up what's called a machinist mate, and we operate boilers. We operate a power plant, which transitioned into an amazing career where I work in the power industry.
All right, thank you. So, Marilyn, I know one of the things that you're very proud of is you're a veteran of the U.S. Navy.
Yeah.
So, can you talk about how your experience in the military prepared you for your work at Reedy Creek and just maybe your work in general in the energy industry?
I think what the Navy did for me, it caused me to mature very fast. When I went in and went my first day of power plant school, machinist mate school, they showed us a pot of water boiling and said, "This is a boiler." And from that moment, we were like sponges. They just poured this knowledge into us at a very short period of time. And I got this education. And when I went to the ship, I had 3 years to operate in what I learned at that school. 3 amazing years of being engaged, operating boilers and power plants, rebuilding pumps and gearboxes. And when I transitioned into the civilian world, it was not bumpy at all. It was very smooth. It was, I found out that the civilian world is really looking for military personnel with that perfect niche training. And what I would tell every young person out there today that is in the military or seeking to come out of the military and transition into the civilian world, don't be afraid. There's great opportunity out here. And for that young person that's listening tonight, that's saying, "I want to go in the military," don't just go in without doing your research. I tell every young person now, the careers that you choose today have to be modular. We live in a very fast-paced, ever-changing workforce, and it's more technically advanced than it's ever been, and it's going to get more technically advanced. So your career has to be modular. I love what Hudson was saying, that one day he'll be doing blueprints, the next day he'll be doing, designs on house connections. So your career has to be modular. If you're going to go out into the Navy or Air Force or anything like that, you have to make sure that the career that you're choosing is going to be here in 5 years. That's how fast the workplace is changing. And to say if you go in to be an instrument and controls tech, everything that's operating today in manufacturing and the power industry is done. Instrument and control techs are the ones who fix everything. That's a career that's going to be here for years. Relay techs, no matter how technically advanced we get in our society, we're going to need power. So it's a great opportunity.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about, so you're the operator for the power plant at Reedy Creek, and what other kind of jobs are there at the power plant?
We have electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, we have line workers, we have relay techs, instrument and control techs, welders, mechanics. Again, like I say, you don't want to be, I hate to say this, right, but you don't want to be a one-trick pony. You want to always have something else. I'm continually learning. I picked up water chemistry. Never thought I'd use it in 1,000 years, but at the power plant, I have to do water chemistry on the boiler. So I make myself more, how could I say, the company needs me more. I make myself more available to the company by having these other things that I can give the company. So valuable, that's the word I was looking for, valuable. You make yourself more valuable when you have more things in your bag. So I'm a mechanic, I'm a power plant operator, I do water chemistry, and I even fool around with a little electrical. So it's, you have to be modular. You have to be able to move with this energy sector. We're constantly changing. We're constantly advancing. And this is the key thing, while we're changing the generation aspect of who we are, doing solar, gas power, nuclear, those things are changing the way we generate. But distribution We're always going to have to get the power out. And we're going to always need line workers and instrument and control techs and relay techs. So we need you young people in our industry. I just turned 50 years old. And I used to be embarrassed about saying, I used to always want to fight age, but man, I'm embracing it now. I've become a granddad. And I used to be called the kid in the power plant at 50 years old. We're all aging out. And we want to share this knowledge with the young people that are coming into our industry.
Thank you so much, Marlon. That was very inspiring. You know, one of the questions I was going to ask you is what advice you had for anyone out there listening who had military experience, who was thinking about going into the energy industry. And it sounds like you kind of answered that, but I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add to that.
Well, I think the thing is that don't be afraid to step out into something that may be unknown. One thing about being a veteran, and I'll give you an example of veteran preference. When I first came out of the military, I hired on with Kissimmee Utility. 300 people put in for 20 jobs. 300 people. You know who got hired? Ex-military vets are the ones that they picked. And it's called veteran preference. And majority of our partners, they hire with veteran preference because they know that you've been trained not only to operate under authority, but you've also learned how to operate in authority. So they look at that, and that's an asset. So I think for every veteran out there, go for it. Go 100 at whatever you're going at.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Marlon. And I want to thank all of our panelists tonight for everything that you've shared. I learned a lot myself, so thank you so much. I hope that those listening have truly enjoyed it, because I know I have. And at this time, I want to pass it over to Maureen Wilt to go through the chat and see if we have any questions for our panelists.
Well, thank you, Amy. We do. And I, too, really enjoyed this evening. I learned a lot. So our first question, we're going to go back to Hudson. And I think I sent him a quick note to say this first question is for Hudson. So Hudson, someone asked a question about entry-level salaries. And so we're not asking you to tell us what your salary was when you started. But do you have an idea of the range? Let's say you're just getting out of engineering school, and if you don't, that's okay. Again, I know you're not in HR, but would you be able to say to folks generally what that entry-level salary might be for a new graduate with a mechanical or electrical engineering degree? Okay. All right. He might not have heard me.
I heard you.
Okay.
I needed to be unmuted again. My internet disconnected. I think that reset the muting thing. But yeah, I typed over there in the chat. Again, that's not range for electrical engineers starting at entry level. It's honestly, it's pretty on par with just the industry average. So I'm not really saying anything that somebody couldn't look up today, Google, but anywhere from 50 to 60, 62 maybe.
Okay.
And over the last few years, I'd say that's probably on par. Again, that's as an engineer. Engineering techs, they're usually generally about a pay band below us. So anywhere from like 10 to 15% less than that you could expect as an engineering tech. But again, you can progress through and every promotion. So engineer 1 to engineer 2, again, can be anywhere from 10 to 13, 14% more every time you get that promotion. So
very good. I appreciate that. Our question is for Nicole. So Hudson, if you could mute, and I'm going to see if I can get Nicole back on. Nicole, you mentioned that your opportunity came about because there were going to be a remodel of the natural gas plant. And so several of you, or many of you, were offered this opportunity to train from power generation to power delivery. But let's say you're just now thinking about a career as a line person. Do you know with your own, I'm not going to ask you to speak to other companies, but with your own company, what's the best way to get into Gulf Power as a line man or a line woman, not having happened, what just happened to you about leaving the plant?
Right. Well, I know you're going to need to apply online at nexteraenergy.com and then go to the careers tab, and then it'll be jobs. It's pretty obvious. It's like big tabs on there, but I know you go to the careers and then you'll look for the jobs, and that's all our jobs that are open. I do believe that Gulf Power will start hiring some apprentice, but they will also be hiring, they just hired some off the street. So it's not just for apprentices. So if you're already currently or get an opportunity to go to a different company and become a lineman, definitely do it, because they are hiring linemen off the street now as well. So it's not just apprentice, but that's how you would actually apply, is go on nexteraenergy.com and then click on the careers tab, and then the jobs that we have posted.
Okay. And something that you mentioned, and I just want to have you expound on that a little bit more. Every company in our state brings in their line people a little differently, but I think you mentioned that Gulf Power does all their own training. Is that correct?
Yes, we do. As far as like the apprentices that just hired in with the plant, yes. Now, I'm not sure because I know the linemen off the street will do training as well. But if you're hired as a lineman, I don't know how much training you already have to have as a prior lineman.
Okay. Well, thank you. That was a question for you.
Okay.
Angela, our next question has to do with the gas industry. And, again, I think it's the area that we're least familiar with, maybe just in society. So can you tell us, are there particular schools that you might recommend that have a gas program, or, is there a particular background that a company like yours might be looking for, let's say, an entry-level person coming into the industry?
There used to be a school, Florida Gas, and they closed that down, I'm going to say about 15 years ago.
Okay.
And as far as I know right now, I haven't heard of any schools as far as that. Mostly everybody is on the job training.
Okay.
As far as, there's places you can go to learn certain things, either online or through informational brochures and stuff like that. But actual training to learn the work that we do, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And I did see one of the comments, I believe one of our schools in Orlando is looking at a program. So we may in the future engage you in what might be a good program to get started in Central Florida. I know your industry is very interested in bringing people on. So perhaps more to come on that. I'm looking through the rest of the questions. I know we've talked about veterans. So I'm going to address that a little bit. I work for NextEra Energy as well as Florida Power and Light. So again, one of the larger companies in the state and throughout the country. I would agree wholeheartedly with what Marlon said. The industry has a lot of places for veterans. All the reasons that Marlon spoke about following directions, safety is paramount in our industry, and you folks in the military, you get that. Also, many in the military are trained, as Marlon was, with a specific job function that fits very well into the energy industry. So certainly, at the Center for Energy Workforce Development, and I'm going to ask our host to write that in and put that in the chat. Get into energy for veterans. There's a lot of information. The other thing that's really important about veterans, and I want to make sure that you hear this, the Center for Energy Workforce Development has on staff a former veteran that will help you as a veteran translate your DD 214. I believe, Marlon, I got that right, your training record, so that someone in the civilian world is going to understand the value of all your training. So as a civilian HR person, I may not understand all the things that you've done. And so the Center for Energy Workforce Development has someone that can help you translate that so that we understand all the things that you've done, and then we can relate it to our business. We also know that folks in the military often are responsible for very, very large budgets and have a huge span of command with many people under your command. And so those are very, very valuable qualities, and it works and translate really well into our industry. And then lastly, when we speak about veterans, I want to mention something else. Many companies have employee resource groups. These are groups that are formed within the company, supported by the company around certain things. It could be veterans, it could be Blacks in energy, it might be women in energy, it could be employees with disabilities, et cetera. And so I know my company, and I believe Duke Power, I certainly am aware, has these veterans groups. And so it gives you an opportunity once you come into the company to also network with others that have come from your background. And so that, I think, is also a place where, in a way, that energy sector is welcoming veterans into the industry. Going to look at other questions here and see. So our host and executive director, Lindsay, has posted getintoenergy.com and www.veteransinenergy.org. So there's also a Troops to Energy. And those are some areas that you might look at for those of you that are veterans and want to hear what the industry has to offer for veterans. Veterans in Energy is a nationwide employee resource group, and it's made up of veterans, and the membership is free for veterans and their spouses. So those are all the different ways that veterans are being served by the industry. And we value your talent, we value your service, and certainly you're a great fit for our industry. I know we have some students on the phone. I know, just want to mention to you that there are a number of schools throughout Florida that have programs specific to our industry. So there are some lineman programs around the state. We've got the map up there. Thank you very much. There are some lineman programs. Not all companies require you go through a lineman program to get hired on, as Nicole was mentioning with her company, as well as with Florida Power and Light. We do open it up to bring in apprentices each year. And we train you ourselves. Other companies are working with state colleges. So there's a number of ways to enter the industry. Marlon, of course, mentioned the military, all of the branches. And then we're hoping, as part of Florida Energy Workforce Consortium, we do have a school in Orlando that's very interested in engaging with the gas industry, because they would like to create a pipeline program for some of the entry-level jobs in the gas industry. So, you know, all ways that we are working together as an industry association to make sure that our members, there are 54 power providers in Florida. Most people don't know that. Some are very large. Some serve maybe one city, like the city of Jacksonville, and others are small. They could be cooperative utilities. The city of Lakeland has its own utility. So is one thing that Marlon said that I want to reiterate: power is always going to be generated in the communities that we live in, that we work. Power is not going to be outsourced unless someone puts some turbines in the ocean. But again, it's going to be generated right here in our own communities, our state, and our country. And so there are always going to be jobs in the sector. The jobs are changing with technology, but that many of our speakers tonight said, don't be afraid to learn, be a sponge. So if you're interested in an ever-changing career, an opportunity where you can learn and grow, certainly our industry offers that. And it's a place you can do a lot of different things over a very long career and continue to grow, develop. And I'd be remiss if I didn't reiterate what our Chair-elect said. These are well-paying jobs, family-sustaining wages with a tremendous opportunity. And I have not heard of one layoff through the pandemic in the energy sector. Now, don't quote me on that, but I know that my company has not laid off anyone, and I have not heard from any of our members that there have been any layoffs. And so, I think that's important for you to remember as you're thinking about a career. We put up on the screen ways to connect with us. We want to thank you for being part of our event tonight. We're going to be sending out a survey. We know we had a little bit of technical issues in the beginning with the quality of the sound, which we were able to correct. So we thank you for being patient about that. And I want to thank all of our presenters for taking the time to join us tonight. You did a really great job. We love the show and tell. For those of you that had a chance to bring a show and tell, we love your enthusiasm. And so, we thank you again. I don't see any other questions, so we're going to get ready to close. Take a look at the survey tomorrow. Please give us your good, honest feedback. Look for information if you want to get a hold of our executive director. Lindsay has got her information there. And all you have to remember is 4 letters, FEWC, the Florida Energy Workforce Consortium. Look us up online. If we haven't answered your question tonight, feel free to drop us a line and we promise to get back to you. Thank you.